Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're doing another episode of Comic Books by the Issue, and today we're looking at Dark Knights of Steel issue 2. There you go. I don't have a bag and board for this one because they're expensive now, so just like this. Hopefully that minimizes the glare, also the fact that I'm doing it right before the sun goes down, so that should help there be less glare, hopefully. But yeah, so Dark Knights of Steel 2. The author here is Tom Taylor, and the artist is Yasmin Putri. I think she does everything. I'm not really sure. It doesn't say anywhere. Let me see if it says in the back of the book here. Yeah, let's see. Written by Tom Taylor, art by Yasmin Putri, colors by Arif Piantro, and letters by Wes Abbott. So there you go. Pretty cool stuff there. There's a, I have a news segment for these types of videos usually. Usually there really isn't anything in the terms of the comic book community, but this time Tom Taylor has signed an exclusive deal with DC for 2022. So once he finishes Dark Ages over at Marvel, he's gonna only do DC content, which is kind of interesting. I kind of saw this coming. I mean, most of the Tom Taylor books that I've ever seen are DC, so it kind of makes sense that they'd be like, yeah, okay, let's lock this guy in with us. Don't really know if it's going to mean anything in the long run, but it is pretty interesting that, it happened, and it just happened a few days ago, so there you go. Now, let's move on to the recap for issue 1. Basically, the L family arrives on Earth, and they immediately get kind of like corralled in by these this army of knights, and of course, their powers awaken. Jor-El basically kills all of these knights and makes it to a kingdom, takes over it, and now they're in charge of this kingdom. Now the L family is the dynastic rulers of this kingdom. I don't really know what it's called, but what happens is that we get a time skip. There's young Kal-El. He's like 19, so is Bruce, and Alfred is there taking care of Bruce as well. And so what happens is that they're having this conversation, and then Bruce goes off to a different town in order to kind of scope out some people that are being kind of doing shit. And what happens is that he finds Dinah Lance, Black Canary, and he captures her. And then he's up in talking with Jor-El, who happens to be his father, but he's like a bastard because it was out of wedlock and stuff like that. And then it ends with this assassination attempt on Jor-El that succeeds, and that's basically where the first issue ended. So let's move on to the review and discussion for this volume here, for this issue here. What happens is that Batman awakens his half-Kryptonian powers due to the emotional stress that he's under because his father basically just died in front of his eyes. And so he yells and screams, and lasers come out of his eyes. Very similar to when in Man of Steel, when Clark kills Zod, and he does the thing where he yells and stuff like that. Very similar. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a very emotional scene. And everyone notices that
something's happening, so the elves that are in the castle rush over to see what happens, and we get to see Kal-El and his mother yelling and crying and stuff because their husband and father is dead, and they're crying over Jor-El's body, and Bruce jumps off the building, and Alfred comes in with some horses, and they go off to find the killer. They basically decide that it's the Green Man because he'd be the only person that would be able to kind of do something like this. But of course there's an archer, so they chase down the archer. Turns out it's basically Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, and what happens is that they, he shoots them an arrow towards Alfred, but Bruce catches it midair, which is really badass. And then they end up going to find him. Bruce cuts off one of his arms, so he can't, use a bow and arrow anymore. And then they throw him in jail. What happens next is the scene shift, and then we get to see the Green Man, which I'm guessing is Hal Jordan, show up and talk to Constantine, who is over at the Pierce Kingdom. The Lightning Kingdom, Storm Kingdom, something like that. Kingdom of Storms. And then we see that, Pierce is helping out his kids. He has a daughter that can use lightning. He has a daughter that can use thunder, which basically means she can use like supersonic attacks essentially, and like strength. And a son that can control rain, which is pretty interesting. I don't know anything about Black Thunder. I think that's his name, Black Lightning. So I don't know anything about him. I've never seen his show or anything about the character before, so I don't really know anything beyond that. But it is pretty interesting. It's cool. And Pierce and Constantine have this conversation about the repercussions of their attack, and basically foreshadows something that happens at the end of the chapter here. So then we are back to the El Kingdom, where Amanda Waller, decides that it's time to go to war because they killed Jor-El. This is a sign of war. So declaration of war. It's time to go and beat some dumbasses up, right? So Harley and Alfred actually though are like, that's probably not a good idea. There's probably a reason why they did this, and it's probably better that we kind of calmly assess the situation. Waller, of course, pushes back. She's like, no, they threatened the kingdom. It's time for them to die, kind of thing. And because Kal-El and Bruce are both quite angry, they kind of agree with it. But Harley decides to bring in Bruce because maybe he's reasonable enough to be like, maybe you shouldn't go to war. And then what happens is that Kal-El shuts down the conversation. He's like, Bruce doesn't get to decide. He's not part of the family. Fuck that guy. Which is really, crappy of him because, he's his half brother and because they're best friends, and, all Bruce has ever done is try to protect him. So, it's pretty bad. But basically Alfred is like, he's just angry and he's not putting it in the right place. It's okay. And, Bruce is like, yeah, he should be angry at me because I was supposed to protect his father and I didn't. And so, everyone's taking the blame for everything. And it's not great, but it kind of happens, so whatever. And then there's another scene shift. And now we're at Amazon Island, where Lois Lane brings in news to Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, about the fact that, Jor-El is dead. And then they go and tell Wonder Woman, who is there when they tell Zala-El, or, this new character that is introduced, who I guess is supposed to be like Kara, but of course she's not, because she's a new character, and she's basically like, what's it called? Kal-El's sister, and of course they have this, grieving moment, mourning moment, but apparently Wonder Woman and her are, lovers, which is pretty interesting, and it worked out pretty nicely. I thought that was a really nice moment there. Thought it was pretty cute of them, and kind of meaningful that Wonder Woman is trying to help her mourn. But then Zala goes away. She flies away somewhere else, and Lois and Wonder Woman have this moment here where they commiserate about the fact that it's a war of gods now. And actually, this raises an interesting point. So the Kingdom of Storms is people with magic, right? People with powers that are not necessarily scientifically based. And the Kryptonians are basically scientifically based powers, right? Where's the distinction for everyone else, right? Like, is Wonder Woman not a magic person? Like, isn't her power derived from gods? And aren't gods, like, magical beings? How does that work? What defines what is good magic, or what is allowed by the by Kal-El's family, and what is defined as not, right? Because I don't understand how Green Lantern can be a magic thing, even though it's technically just willpower, and like what's the word, like alien technology, but someone like Wonder Woman, who is like the daughter of gods, and imbued with godly power. I mean, she wasn't even born like a real person. I'm pretty sure she was made out of mud. Like, how is she not a magic user, right? So I'm curious to see how that works and how they explain it away, because so far it's kind of confusing. So we'll see how that works. But I thought it was interesting, and a kind of interesting point to bring up now. So yeah, scene shift. They're in the dungeons. Cal wants to talk to the archer, but Bruce is like, you should relax, don't get angry. And then he's like, this guy used to have 2 arms, right? And Bruce is like, yes. And then he's like, and you tell me to watch my anger? And, Bruce is like, oh, you're right. Okay, I'll shut up now. And Harley's trying to, tell them, you know, relax and stuff like that. And you know, Kal-El's like, no, you guys should leave. And then they do because they have to. They don't have the authority to stay. And Harley and Bruce are having a conversation about how war is probably not a good thing, but Bruce is like, I don't know. I really want to kill people that hurt my father, basically. And Harley is trying to, you know, say no, but Bruce is ignoring her because she's a Harley Quinn. She's not like anything important, right? So I don't know. That is pretty interesting. Apparently, Harley is not just a Harley Quinn, a Joker, you know, a person to entertain. She's also supposed to be in what's called an attendant, a bishop, an advisor. There you go. So I thought it was pretty interesting how that kind of relationship there works. And you know, they talk about war and justice. And then Cal is talking to Oliver. Well, I'm guessing he's Oliver Queen. I mean, he had a green hood and he had an arrow, so Green Arrow's got to be Oliver Queen, but I don't really know. So we'll go with that. And they have this conversation about how, you know, Kal-El is a monster because he's an alien, he's not from here, and he has powers that no one else does, which is kind of weird because there's a bunch of people with magic. So is Kal-El really all that different? Is there really anything special about him? Is it bad because he's an alien? I mean, he looks like a person and he has powers. By that definition, don't everyone else that has powers also not come from Earth? Are they also not human? Are they also not monsters? So I don't really understand this kind of you know, distinction here, because it doesn't really make sense to me, you know, visually, especially in a medieval setting where most people will probably not be all that educated. There really is no difference between the two. But this Oliver Queen character wants to, you know, make that kind of statement. And then Kal-El says, you know, we're not monsters. We're doing this via justice, not revenge and stuff like that. But then we get a scene shift and we get to see that this El is over at the Pierce Kingdom and at the Pierce's castle, and she just like breaks it and then grabs his son, Pierce's son, and you know, Pierce is like, let him go, and then she's like, yeah, that's the idea, flies really high up and drops the kid, and no one else has a flying ability, so no one saves the kid, and of course the kid dies. Pierce throws lightning at her and it doesn't seem to affect her, so I don't see why they're fighting each other if, you know, Pierce can't actually hurt the Kryptonians. And she says it tickles, and then she goes away. And so war is definitely upon us. So I'm curious to see how this goes. I'm really liking it so far. I think it's really, really good. So we'll see, you know, how the rest of the story goes. But yeah, that's all I have to say today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And let me know what you think about this series so far. Are you guys liking it? Are you guys not liking it? Is it, you know, as good as people seem to make it out? Or is it just really, you know, average, not for you? Let me know that in the comments. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. See you guys later.